Hello, cousins, citizens, and fellow cultists, to another episode of the Shattersong LARP Diaries. We are talking monstering. I've spent the whole evening making demons and gnolls for Frostgrave. If you haven't played it and you are Warhammer pilled, check it out. It's fucking insane. Awesome kits. And lo and behold, I got the wonderful notification that monstering has been published on the wiki. And I quote, "We have a dedicated skirmish crew who are keen to fight everyone, but they are intending to bolster their ranks over the event with monstering slots. These will be done by nation over the weekend, and a schedule will be provided closer to the event." And we are going to be playing as the Fallen, the baddies, the not very nice ones who are absolutely going to kill every single player they can. So, I'm very excited for this. Combat's my favourite part of LARP, and finally getting some structure around not how we're going to fight as characters, because we've got our stats right, but what we're going to be playing against, and how is that going to look. Are we going to have big battles, which is 50% of the player base swapping sides each day, like at Empire? Or are we going to see a more swap-in, swap-out system, like you can see Eerie Light events do this extremely well, is you get a monstering slot, you monster only once over the weekend, but you get involved in lots of smaller skirmishes, which I personally prefer, because 30 on 30 makes you feel like a hero. 1000 on 1000 is epic, but sometimes it doesn't matter how good you and your unit are, you can't do anything. So let's see what's going to happen at Menhirs Fate. First of all, what is monstering? For those of you who don't know, it's a term that means playing the enemies, and normally in a combat sense. For example, if you were at a Lord of the Rings LARP, like Wome, Warriors of Middle-earth, a sister to Bastion, another outstanding LARP, you might monster as the Orcs of Mordor in the Lord of the Rings setting. Monstering, specifically player monstering, is a key part of LARP as it helps keep fights challenging and fun by providing players more enemies to fight than often the amount of players at a game will outnumber the skirmish crew alone. So if you've got 1,000 attendees, then you're only going to have 50 to 100 crew. Obviously, outnumbering your enemies 10 to 1 all the time is going to suck, so you sub in and out. In the LARP community, in the LARP community, it is expected that if you are participating in fights and skirmishes as your character, you should monster a fight as well, so that it is fair for everyone. If your character does not battle, then you don't need to monster, sometimes referred to as non-com. What is categorically not okay, and if you've seen the do and don'ts videos that Menhirs have been putting out on their YouTube channel, which are fantastic, by the way, lovely high production quality, loving it. One of the big don'ts was mobile phones. Just leave them in your tent, you won't need them. But secondly, is if you play a player character, especially on, let's say, the Saturday fight, and then you get too drunk on Saturday night and then you don't show up to monster on Sunday, I think people who do that are possibly the biggest problem with the combat side of LARP. You talk about health and safety, you talk about combat mechanics. I think fundamentally what really kills the fucking game is people who can't handle themselves on a Saturday night, and then they just bail out of their obligations in the morning. And yet, they're often the people who complain about battles and fighting enough monsters themselves when they end up on the Sunday fight after monstering on Saturday. So yeah, if you're going to fight as your character, go and monster. It is not a chore just because you have to do it. I would say it's fundamentally one of the most fun things you can do at LARP, because it doesn't matter about your character. You get a tiny little bit of plot. You're playing Zerbag the Evil for an hour and a half, and you get to throw yourself into that character, have some epic fights, and be the epic baddie that gets killed by someone's player character. And when they're driving home, they will be ranting and raving about, oh, there was this huge orc, had a massive 200 axe, and then I dived underneath it because they did a really cool overhead swing, and then I gutted them, and they sort of had blood frothing out of their mouth, and they fell over. That could be you, citizen. That could be you dying on the floor, making someone else's day. That's why you should monster. But rant over. If there's a reason you or your character wouldn't want to play on a battle or a fight. You are very welcome to monster multiple times, so you never have to risk your character. And if you like monstering, hands up, I have done this. You fight, you don't fight on any day, and you monster for both instead. And that I did that at Empire in 2024 at E2. Phenomenal time, absolutely phenomenal time. Loved it. Monstering is one of the best ways to learn combat as well. So if you're new, you can get lots of practice as a monster. So that's maybe 5 minutes of exposition that we didn't need, but let's focus on monstering at Menhirs Fate. There will be time slots throughout the weekend where all the fighting players who have attended or plan on attending their nation's main adventure will join the skirmish crew for up to 2 hours. That's not long at all, only 2, crikey, to help bulk out the monstering numbers for the reasons described above. There will be set time slots throughout the weekend for each nation, published before the event, and each slot will be 2 hours. You will be given stats and abilities for your monster, different to your skills and abilities from your player character, so you can't just port one over, and these may change from event to event, so make sure you know your stats for the encounter. Empire do this with big whiteboards as you go through the monster tent. I'm sure we'll see something similar. There may be some low combat roles, including utility magicians or healers, but these will differ from faction to faction, well, factions of the enemy, and will be limited in number. So speak to the skirmish leader if you have those kind of requirements or requests. The one requirement we will not be able to help with is if you cannot get hit by LARP weapons. This is unavoidable. Thank you, Menhirs Fate, for spelling out once again that LARP is a combat sport, and you're going to get hit. Fantastic. The players will play a couple of different roles, supported by the full-time skirmish crew, who will act as commanders. Make sure you listen to skirmish leaders on these encounters. They are there to look at the big picture of how to make the fight the most fun it can be. There will also be respawn points, where if your monster has died, wait a bit on the ground, put your hand in the air after 30 seconds or minutes or whenever the combat has moved on, and then that signifies that you're out of character. You sort of point it straight up like you're asking a question in class, and then you stand up and then go to that space designated by the skirmish crew. If in doubt, ask. It's very much like paintball. The goal of monstering at Menhirs Fate should not be to kill the players, but to represent the enemies to the best of your ability and provide the most immersion for those players you are fighting against. React and give them an awesome game, and they will do the same for you when you are fighting them. I think that's actually, that last sentence there, again, this is clearly ILARP influenced, but I think this is actually something that's not said enough, is that perhaps you should act as a role model for the kind of monsters you would like to face. So each time, as a monster, you say, well, actually, you didn't quite rend me there, or crush me here, or this isn't heavy armor, it's light armor, actually. Just imagine someone doing that to your player character when you're playing your hero. That would suck. And when in doubt, take the hits and be dramatic about it. I think in regards to killing players, everyone who's monstering would like to. I'm making a very broad assumption here. I think most people, when they monster, they'd like to get a player, But it's not about, haha, cool, we outnumbered you 10-1 and beat the snot out of you. They kind of want it to be, a even fight, and they win through strength of arms, and maybe one of the players heroically holds the line while their friends gets out of there, and we will beat the snot out of that player, but there's a good narrative end point to that beating. We don't want to just ambush them and kill them all. We want to ambush them, down a bunch, let the others sort of react to an ambush and then fight you off perhaps, or maybe you kill 6 of them, or maybe you take some hostages or whatever, but having a total party wipe isn't the intention. So, what do you actually need to bring to Monster? First of all, yourself. Come ready to have some fun. We will always endeavour that both volunteers and players will have fun in these battles, and we can't wait to have you. Part 2 is basic base layers, so come in basic kit. So tunic, trousers, maybe like a jacket, a jerkin, any armour or weapons you might want to use, bring them as well. I'm not sure what the colour scheme is going to be like for the Fallen. I imagine it's going to be black, since this is a colour-based game and the evils are probably, black robe wearing dudes. I'm guessing we haven't got the information yet. But turning up as an evilish kind of person, if you've got that dark, dirty armour, those brutal-looking axes and maces, that kind of stuff, that's going to be nice and scary. You'll also be asked to bring kit that's relevant to the faction you're monstering as. So we covered the 4 gods in the previous episode. I imagine they might have some trappings or perhaps some colours or themes to them. So we had the war and battle god. I imagine they're going to have lots of heavy armour, for example, and swords and shields because they're born for a fight. But then the ones that are, I think that was like a more like a sycophant god. It's all about your personal reputation and having other people adore you. You might be lightly armoured as skirmishers, as a broad example. The Menhirs Fate team will provide some basic kit for players who are monstering, but you are more than welcome to bring your own and refer to the faction look and feel for suitable kit. Ooh, I've just seen a link at the bottom. We will be covering that in this episode. Hot damn. Right, final part. Referees. On the battlefield, there's going to be crew acting as referees. It is in our plan for all of the skirmish crew and nation support crew to be trained as battle refs as well, and there will be other referees around too. If you have any out-of-character problems in the battlefield, please do not hesitate to find a ref, and always remember the player down call for when an injury, which is now a character one, has occurred. If a referee tells you to do something out of character, please make sure to follow their instructions. It's likely for your safety and benefit. The most often is, please don't fight here, because whilst you have a helmet on and you can't see something, the referee has seen a particularly large hole right next to your ankle that will break your ankle if you were to step in it. So it's like a game of rugby. Respect the referee and do what they say. Right, the Fallen look and feel. This is actually a genuine surprise. Fuck yeah. Okay. The Fallen are the 4 factions of the corruption. Within the chill grasp of the Fallen, all who succumb to its influence undergo a grim transformation, driven by unrelenting hunger, greed, and a desperate need to hoard whatever they cherish. Whether in life or death, servants of the Fallen manifest a pervasive cold, physical, emotional, and spiritual effect that reflects their master's domain. The bulk of the Fallen's forces are made up of converted members of Elandra, and as such, the clothing they wear reflects this. Alongside the clothing from the 9 realms, the Fallen are often seen wearing frost blue with silver accents, accompanied by black underlayers, always embellished with the symbol of the silver hand and little frosty details to make their allegiance clear. They know what they believe is right. Menhirs will provide blue tabards for players monstering as the Fallen, although players are more than welcome to build your own kit. Inspiration includes Wrath of the Lich King and those kind of Death Knights. Frost blue tabards with a silver hand with splayed fingers is the iconic kit, and frosty details as mentioned above. Roleplay. The crowned of the Fallen are covetous above all else, and they have sacrificed their humanity in return for the promise of endless plenty to add to their bursting treasuries. They display their opulence, but their fixation is on keeping hold of their wealth, and it is through gritted teeth that any of them begrudgingly allow even a single coin or grain of wheat to pass from their control. The lands under their occupation are controlled by want, strict rationing, crippling taxation, imposed debt, and merciless enforcement. And we've got some examples of the colour palette, so it's greys and blacks as we talked about a few minutes ago, but silvers and blue, I was totally wrong about reds and stuff. Pale sky frosty blues with silver trimmings and like the hand symbol. It's not quite it's very much a handprint. Imagine like a bloody handprint, but white instead of red. Okay, roles available to all players. There are several different types of enemies in Elandra amongst the Fallen. First of all is a recruit. So a Fallen recruit is a fresh convert or conscript, someone who has just been turned or coerced into serving this cold deity's cause. They still retain much of their nation's physical garb and fighting style, but icy motifs and a hungry, greedy edge now colour their actions. Whether they hail from Avero or Hammerstad, they obsess with securing what the Fallen craves. Most players when monstering will be recruits. This is a much easier to do because it uses your nation's kit, or if you would like, another nation's kit. So your look is visibly retaining your cultural attire, but with frost and subtle icy sigils. You're always going to be wearing a belt tag or tabard to signify your Fallen allegiance. So basically, if you go to a charity shop and get like an icy blue scarf or something, whack that on, you're good to go. I really like this actually. 5 out of 5 monstering, because for, let's take Jotun at Empire, right? You bring red stuff and heavy armor, but if you're in Navarre where you wear medium/light and you wear greens and browns, it's basically another whole kit. You I don't say have to bring, because you don't have to bring it, but you should, or it will enhance your monstering experience should you do so. But in this, it's explicitly part of the game that the kit you show up with for the weekend is the same for your player character and for your monster, apart from perhaps a little scarf you've got to tuck in a pouch. So that is some good golden stuff. Right, second rank, dedicated. In life, these individuals sought to preserve their comfort, wealth, and status at all cost, fearing any change that might take it away. Upon dedicating themselves to the Fallen, their obsession was twisted into a cold resolve. The world must remain as they like it, no matter the price. Clinging onto old grudges and possessions, they see anyone carrying better gear or appearing more successful as a direct threat to their future. Their eyes gleam with jealousy, scanning the battlefield for trophies to seize and claim as their own. So their look is old-looking, tattered but well-maintained clothing, and may carry small pouches of valuables, or they often wear multiple stolen trinkets from fallen foes, often wearing medium armor, a one-hand weapon and a shield, or dual wielding. Okay, so that's like basic line infantry, and medium infantry. I like that shields are in here. That's good. Having like monsters with a shield battle line makes them a lot tougher than a bunch of ambidextrous fighters. And then just popping back to recruit, weapons and armor is as befits the nation. Cool. Alright, so we're going to get a lot of variety. A drudge. Fallen drudge, or druge, it's D-R-U-D-G-E, so I'm going to say drudge. Fallen drudge are the mortals who have succumbed entirely to the wintry grasp of the Fallen. Their bodies are ice cold, locked in an unending cycle of mindless need for warmth and things they miss in life. Many of these souls desperately hoarded food, wealth, or comfort, and now death has twisted that obsession into an endless need. While slow and clumsy, they relentlessly pursue those who still cling to warmth, especially if they sense valuables or signs of plenty. So they are pale, frost-bitten faces and have frosty water weave marks. Like the armours, one or two-handed weapons, no spears or shields. So your typical line infantry, I guess. Light infantry at the very least. Other roles amongst the Fallen. So amongst the Fallen, the people of Alandra have seen other types of beings as well, and they call them the Crowned. These, for the most part, will be played by our skirmish crew, but may open up to players as they learn more about the world. These will be more senior roles amongst the Fallen, with long proven commitment and strength in leading the corruption against those who resist it. So they got basic black layers, light blue tabards, dark coloured tarnished and tatty armour, and they've got old valuables from looted foes. Okay, so that's basically skirmish crew are going to look impressive and different, and as players you can show up as just your nation with a bit of blue. You can show up with sword and shield and medium armour and provide a more generic infantry, or as a drudge you can show up with a weapon and some really cool facial cosmetics, like a sort of zombie kind of vibe, and then go ham with that. Cool. Well, that is a pleasant surprise on my Wednesday evening. 3 minutes to midnight. I'm going to wrap up the episode there. I'm very much excited. I think I've been ooming and ahhing over whether to be on the crew side of things for Menhirs or to play as Urdreven, and seeing these kind of things come out from monstering is pushing me towards the crew. But at the same time, I think either way you go with this is going to be a lot of fun. So until next time, citizens, see you then.